Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back with John Riggio, our architect, our pro tennis player. New title, I should say, is author, soon to be traveler back to Japan, and so much more. He's here joining us live today on the show. Excited to talk more about all his architect work and, of course, his work in the pro tennis world. How are you?
Great. Thanks, Jill. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm excited because John Riggio put his book in the mail for me. So I just got to start with that. Tell us the title of the book and where we can get it.
Yes. My book is called My Own Court, The Life Story of Tennis Legend John Riggio.
Beautiful.
And this is a book that comes from the videos that we've been making over the years, remembering all the different stories about architect work and all the different stories about tennis. And I put it together in one autobiography. And it came out really excellent. The book is available on the internet. You could buy it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or the other stores available on the internet. It comes in a hardcover, softcover, and an ebook, so you can read it in any language. Very easy to translate. And today, I'm going to continue with some more stories about some tennis. My architect office is doing very good. In the meantime, I have 5 W-2 employees, and I'm compiling some nice portfolio projects. I will show them in the coming weeks. But as far as the old days of tennis, I was just thinking about the past, and it was really amazing because in the book I describe when I was growing up, my father and my family, they could tell that I could play tennis very well. And if I could share this. Let me just show the book here. I have it on the Kindle, so I think you can see it here. So if I go through the pages,
yep.
I can go all the way here to the start of the book. And this is the title of the book. It shows the front cover. And this is a recent picture of me here playing at one of the local parks, teaching tennis recently. My group has grown to 1,800 or more people now. A lot of people really like playing the tennis. And so what happens here is, just in the origins of my tennis story, which is chapter 1, is it says whole story about my family. So I included a lot of stories about my father, my grandfather, even my great-grandparents here pictured in this photograph. And they could tell that I could play excellent tennis. So my father pretty much said that to play professional tennis, that I should always play honest tennis, should never cheat. And he just told me quickly that he had some knowledge about pro tennis players. And this knowledge, it came through his father. So it says that in the initial part of my book, how my grandfather, who started off like a lot of people coming to America, he came here with his parents also. And he ended up working just like a regular job here at the paper mill in New Jersey. A lot of people used to take to this kind of job, and he slowly built his way up to own a business in Brooklyn. And from that, when he was older, he got into investing in sport players. He got his license to do it. He must have been in his 60s. And I noticed people who train players, sponsor players, the older they are, the better. If you're younger, there's a lot of dangers involved. I notice when people are older, they have a lot more experience. They could handle things like that. And so in the book, I was just saying very briefly about my grandfather and my father. I had some knowledge about sports, tennis players, some boxers. And I think the basic story from that experience was really just to play honest. And if you're a player and you play honest, the whole thing is going to work out better, especially if you're a winning player, if you really have the talent to play. So when I was able to really break the records when I was so young with my family, my father could tell I could probably make it as a pro player. And so I was specifically saying that here about my relatives. And here it just says briefly about how my grandfather, he got into some sponsoring. And that sponsoring turned out to work out pretty good. But I think one interesting thing is where we are, some of the people he sponsored are somewhat known to everyone. In tennis, he was really one of the sponsors of Arthur Ashe. And in boxing, he was one of the sponsors of Rocky Marciano. I think everyone heard of that name from years ago. He was a well-known boxer. So there were some other ones too. I tried to remember the names of who else he was involved with sponsoring. But he had a large family. He ended up having 9 children. My father was one of the children. And but in fact, my father took to going to the sporting events with his father, my grandfather. So my grandfather was doing so good in this at older age that he even started using the name Rizzo. Rizzo usually means that you're really achieving somehow. And this is just the name he was using. And the name even went down in the census. They started to use this name. Now, I think he just used it as like a sport name, like a player would make up a fake name to use in sports, and that's what he was doing. So that was one very interesting thing. And I was watching one of the Arthur Ashe's videos, and he was saying that he got into tennis by someone named, nice guy named Rizzo, he said. So that was really my grandfather. But since my grandfather had already passed away, and when I was young, my father had also died at a young age from his health. He had injuries from World War II, and he eventually died of cancer. But from the basic knowledge I was told to really play honestly is all I needed to go. So then 1 year after my father had passed away at a young age of 8 years old, the next year, just by chance, my mother bought this Prince tennis racket that I really wanted from a pro shop. And the local pro shop of Patrick Mulroney sponsored me. When my mother brought the tennis racket back all bent, he could tell in 2 seconds, the same thing that my father noticed. If you can bend the racket like that, you must have the ability to play pro tennis. And that's what I was immediately sponsored. So this whole thing really, I started to then build on my own. I had the basic knowledge just to play honest. And then the input coming from Patrick Mulroney really just gave me the basic direction on how to start to play tennis. And that was really for me to just find my way in tennis. And I think with this book, it's very interesting. It starts off with that base knowledge from my grandfather, and then goes to my father telling me about how to play, that I have the ability to play, and then after that, getting my sponsorship, Patrick Mulroney, and the pro shop, and then taking it from there. So that's what was happening. And so I think I didn't talk about my grandfather in detail too much here. I didn't want to distract people reading the book, going off, then they start researching other players, and then they put my book down and they don't want to read about it. There's better they would just get the basic idea, which is really the knowledge that I had just to play honestly. And in fact, when I was younger, we used to go to watch the Mets, the New York Mets, and they used to have the Shea Stadium back then. So my father, my mother, my brothers, we all used to get in the car. We used to drive down to Shea Stadium.
Me too.
And that's when my father was telling me that across the street was the tennis.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, they don't really go to watch tennis like it's baseball. So we used to go over to watch the New York Mets instead. And across the street was the tennis. But my father would tell me some things about the tennis center.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my mother was even asking about maybe him bringing me over to take a look at some of the tennis playing at that time. But really, I think from his experience with playing tennis, going there as a spectator sport wasn't really that important. It wasn't a big deal to him. Going to watch the Mets at Shea Stadium was really more of a family, fun, safe thing to do. The other one's dangerous. So what happened is, so that's how those little hints of the tennis history was coming out. And I think sometimes at family parties, they talked a little bit about my grandfather and their experience with some sport players watching the events and things like that. And I think that gave him a little extra money too. Made things a little better for him. And starting off, working a job, getting a business, and getting into this at older age was pretty good. And so that is one thing that was happening. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was really a very interesting story that I put in the book here. And so I'm just elaborating on it now. I'm just explaining a little bit more about those stories. And that was pretty good. I think when I was growing up, my grandfather, I was still like a young child, but I remember him talking to me, and they used to talk a little bit about how they had some sponsors in tennis and boxing, and that's pretty much. And one thing I learned about is that boxing, as far as how the structure of the sport works, as far as professional sport, is very similar. It works the same way, and a lot of it is just built on playing honestly and winning. And staying ahead of the game to continue to win. And they have all kinds of percentages of winning, too. One percentage is not going below 50% of your games. That is really one key in professional sports from playing in the years. And then, of course, to play at the top, you have to have really a high percentage of winning. You have to really play excellent and things like that. And so I think the knowledge that was taking place with my grandfather and my father, some of it sort of was lost with them passing on at a sort of different ages. And so I think some things as far as getting an agent, as far as a tennis player is concerned, any kinds of advice like that. Unfortunately, I missed out on some of those things. I couldn't get all the knowledge that they had. I think looking back at it now, if you were a young tennis player, you have a contract of any kind, you would meet all your basic requirements if you can with things like an agent and things like that. I noticed from doing things with other entertainers, sometimes their parents are really able to pick up on working as the agent. And when I was able to get into playing some pro tennis, and by doing that, I started my tennis club in middle school. So by starting that tennis club in middle school, I met Anthony Cambria. Anthony Cambria was explaining to me at the time that he had a choice. He could either sign on as my agent, or he could sign on as my administrative coach. He decided to sign on as my administrative coach. He had the ability to do that. He had the position to do that kind of work, which very few people are able to do something like that and really work in the ATP and tennis world. And then I think the only downfall of that, which he was explaining to me, was finding really a good agent that is willing to really give you hard money to spend for yourself. Instead of going with too much work on the side, I would be able to collect more money, things like that. But for some reason, he wasn't able to have both of those roles. He could only do one of them. He could either do the agent or the administrative coach. And I think looking back at it now, as far as his position, the administrative coach is much more valuable. The agent, it solves a lot of problems. I think one interesting thing about not having an agent was, let me just close the screen here. one about not having an agent is it puts more pressure on the parents. And I think one interesting story along with this was when I was playing tennis and I used to win the matches, sometimes there was some kind of outrage by my opponents. I don't know how to explain it, but somehow the phone would start ringing. And if you pick up the phone, no one's there. And this started to put some pressure on, particularly my mother. So when the phone was ringing at home, in the old days, we had these old line phones. So there's really just one main phone in the house. Everyone didn't have their cell phone back there. It was right before cell phones. We just started to get the wireless hardline phone too, where you could take the phone and walk around the house with it without staying within like 6 feet of the telephone. But there's still just one phone number. So whenever the phone rang, it started to unnerve my mother. And she ended up buying this little toy device that makes all kinds of siren noises, like a fire siren, a police siren. And when the phone would ring, she'd pick up the phone, no one was there, and she'd press the button on this little toy, and it would make noises, hoping they'd go away. And I didn't want to say, but from my experience, it sometimes it's really, I felt, it was from playing tennis. If you don't give someone one game or something like that when you're playing, somehow the phone ends up ringing at home. I don't know what the coincidence is. I don't know if someone could explain something like that. So that was one real pressure that was going on my mother. Then the next pressure was the thing with the sports, when they realized that if you don't have an agent and the mother or father is the agent, then the pressure goes on the family. And I felt that personally, my mother started to really pass on a little, sort of had the feeling that she was becoming like a victim of identity theft, because the mother usually went and got all my supplies from the pro shop, went and got the rackets. Every time the racket would break, she'd go get the racket, get a new one, bring it back to me. If the stringing broke, she'd go get professional stringing, go bring it back to me, things like that. So all those things was going through my mother for a while. So she was doing very nicely, but I think some of those things maybe they went after things like that. And I noticed my mother over time, by the time 1999 came, my mother was not able to help me at all. She did not do anything with tennis. She did not say anything that I was even playing tennis. And so it was really sort of a sad story. She's sort of like passing on. And that's why I was just reflecting back. The idea of having an agent would solve some of those problems. It would take a little pressure off the parents and the family, that people won't start looking at it. And I talked to some agents over the years, and they're just ordinary people. I just talked to them as there was no big deal. But I think, especially when I was younger, if my mother was to call, getting an agent at that age is probably a lot easier for a parent to do something for their children to get their agent. So that was one interesting thing that was happening. And so I think with that was just one thing about sports. And I think the knowledge of having the agent, how to do all those different things, I didn't get that knowledge coming through my father or my grandfather. I only knew about playing honest, and some hints about getting the agent, getting the publicist, getting the advertising, doing all those different things. Some of it came through the players. When I was playing more and more with the different players, they used to assign instructors, playing at my own tennis center. I would talk to the other pro players. I started to pick up a lot of those things. Then some of those things would also get repeatedly done every time I got a new sponsor. We go through the same thing. So all those things were very important. And I even read a very interesting book from the library. When I was young, my coach, Anthony Kimber, used to give me a list of books. He used to always recommend me going to the library, reading all the different books on sports. And there was some books that were really very sport business. One of them was even suggesting I go to the bank, see if the bank could act as my agent to collect money. So instead of the money going through the parent, which the parent could turn into identity theft, which pretty much was clearly happening at the end, I can get money directly through a bank. I think that was one very interesting idea. I did have a little progress with that. I did go to local banks, talk to them. I think at that age, I was young. You have the guy who runs the bank comes out and talks to me instead of just talking to the teller. That was an interesting experience. I was starting to make some progress with that. It was pretty good. And that was really from ideas from reading sport business books. I just took them out in the library. Years ago, people weren't buying that many books at the bookstore like they do today. I think most books, I was going to the public library or going to my school library. And I was getting a lot of knowledge like that. So that was helping. I think whenever something didn't work with the book, reading through some advice like that, I was always starting to get a little puzzled of why their recommendations weren't really going so perfectly. And I think that has to do with, I guess it's just their own situation. Then they just told their story, and then they tried to, give some good advice to whoever reads the book. So the advice was very good. It was good that I was at least able to get some clues on what to do with that. A lot of people, they couldn't just give me the definite things. They couldn't just go call their agent. And I think also some things like that were a little troubling about not having all those things. I didn't want to say, but I think if you don't have like a publicist or you don't have a thing, it's like if you go to school and you didn't bring your lunch money. Sometimes they could start to think there isn't something's wrong. But I think not having all the different things for sports or even entertainment, I think it's very common. I think some people just lie. I had my girlfriend used to say her father was really the official agent. And when we got into some serious sport talk, he never had any license or anything. He was just doing it as a parent. He didn't have any real official license or any real contract. So I think things like that were also happening. That the what was going on wasn't really in writing. And of course, when I talked to my lawyer, Hillary Clinton, she had all the definite things for me, knew all the legal papers. Things were going very good. I had a publicist for a while at that time. So things were okay. And so that was very interesting. And so I think going back to the start of the story is really, my grandfather invested in some players, and he had the Arthur Ashe there. And in fact, my picture is on the Facebook. Just by chance, they had.
Really?
Let me get the
Pull it up.
Let's get the. Let me just get this here. Let's just share it again. Who's that? Oh, there. All right. Okay, so this here shows some photos. Let's get the albums. Okay. And just going through this, I have these on the Facebook page, and it shows some different things. One of them is this photograph is really from that video. And then let's go to the next one. Okay, is this here? All right, so this is the video here, and let's see if the video turns on.
Sure.
So this is just by chance. Arthur Ashe is making his talk here on Tony Roach's video, and I'm here in the background. This is the strangest thing. I think when I was there, Arthur Ashe in particular was just still coaching. He was like a year before he fully retired. And there were some other veteran players from his generation that were there like maybe another year or two. And this is here in the picture, and I'm here on the right side. So this here was very interesting. And that shows this here, and this shows some other players.
Love this. And you're in the background of this, right? Wait, where are you?
Okay, yeah, I'm there.
There you are.
Let's see up here. Okay, yeah, there.
So cool.
Okay. Okay, there. So that's me just looking over at the camera. And I think at the time I walked over there and I saw them recording this, and I didn't think about it too much, but it was true. It was my chance to somehow get into some kind of video on this.
That's amazing you found this. And
it was amazing. Years later, I was just watching this video on the tennis, because I remember the Tony Roach. He taught me some tennis and everything. And when I was reading this, it turns out I was pictured here in his video, which is pretty good. They didn't edit me out, so that was nice. And so this is here, and this is just me pictured here. I had my new sweats on that I had just bought, and did pretty good. I think in this, the only time I didn't have time to get a haircut. That was my hair was very long. I think when you're young, especially, your hair goes very fast, and I didn't really have time to get a haircut in that whole summer. And that was really one interesting thing about it. I usually had shorter hair most of the time. I didn't really have longer hair, and this is what's going on here. And then I think at that time they had all kinds of things like this, like the Sports Illustrated pin, all kinds of things like that. Yeah, this is another just still image. Sure, that's the picture there. But I think this whole thing with Arthur Ashe in the picture is just a crazy coincidence. There's some other players my grandfather did sponsor at that time. I'm trying to remember their names. As soon as I can really definitely remember their names, I will talk about them. But I think him as a sponsor really only gave me that information about not cheating, always playing honest, playing an excellent sportsmanly game. There were no tricks about playing tennis, pro sports. I don't know their business of sponsoring, but as far as tennis player, all I know is just playing honest sports, and that was really very interesting. So I think that was a very interesting set of knowledge from my grandfather. Then my father, who used to always go and accompanied him to see the sport players. In fact, my father even learned some tennis from the sport players he sponsored.
Yeah.
So my father was able to play some pretty good tennis. He played a certified 4.5, and my father used to play left-handed too. My father was able to play both. So when I was very young, I could play some left-handed tennis. I wasn't sure if I was going to play left-handed tennis or right-handed tennis. I was trying both right-handed, trying some left-handed. My father recommended hitting the ball right-handed. So when I was younger, at that age, very small, I was playing left-handed for a while. I think a lot of it had to do with hitting like a backhand shot. Hitting a backhand shot.
We are 1 minute away. I always forget. We always just keep talking, which is not a bad thing, but we're out of time. Sorry, go ahead.
So that was very interesting. I just ended up playing right-handed.
Right.
In fact, a good percentage of pro tennis players, they play left-handed, especially that generation that was like 14 years older than me. A lot of them were left-handed players somehow. I was a right-handed player. I noticed a lot of players in my generation, a lot of them were playing right-handed, but they had this thing about a lot of them were left-handed. My father used to play left-handed tennis, and but I ended up just played the right-handed tennis. I could put it together with a right-handed, but I did play left-handed and right-handed when I first started off. It was very interesting.
Well,
when I was very young.
John, I apologize. We have to run. How do we contact you?
I guess you can go to my webpage, johnriggio.com, or you can go to my Facebook page for my tennis stories, John Riggio Pro Tennis Player, and I have all kinds of stories there, links to my tennis experiences. And of course, you can get the link to buy my book too. It's really excellent. You should read it. It has a lot of amazing stories.
Beautiful. Can't wait till it comes my way. I'll let you know. Thank you again, John. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy your travels to Japan. Hopefully we'll talk to you next week live from there, okay? Thank you.
Okay, nice. Good talking to you. Bye, Joe.
Bye, John.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.